Hello and welcome again, students from Grammar 2. This is the video summary from our second meeting regarding history of grammar. And before we start, as I mentioned during the meeting, it was extremely hard to try and summarize the content. In fact, I ended up just talking about structural grammar and systemic functional grammar. There is tons of information around on the internet, and I didn't want to include transformational grammar because it will be like just too much to process. Of course, you will need to read about this because it's part of your formation as an English teacher. But for this video summary, and which happened, the same happened during our meeting, we will only be talking about structural grammar and systemic functional grammar. It was really hard to try and make a timeline for the history of at least the descriptive grammars, since there is not a single one on the internet. And the study of grammar starts in the early 1600s. Make your mind about that. So let's start with this. As I always tell you, I recommend you to pause the video and take notes. For our evaluation, I will be asking questions regarding the aspects that we will see in this presentation, and I will also be sending you some material regarding both structural grammar, which I have already done, and systemic functional grammar. So let's go. Remember, this is the content. This is the schedule for our meetings. So this first part, yes, it says de las gramáticas descriptivas. That we were going to talk about these three, but as I mentioned, I only included structural and systemic functional. I will just mention something brief about the transformational grammar. So, structural grammar, as I mentioned, focus on the structure syntax at its best. Systemic functional grammar includes more relationship between words and the function, hence the name, the function that the words have within a sentence. Transformational grammar, Noam Chomsky's baby, is basically like one of the top ones, I would say. Some people would disagree, I know. But because of a LAD theory, which I would mention at the end of the video, you will see what I mean. So, I mentioned this in the previous video, but this is a short definition for structural grammar. Let's just highlight some parts of it. It focuses on the construction of sentences, deals with structure, and not necessarily pays attention with the words that are going to be used, as long as the structure is correct. So, it's one of the descriptive grammars introduced by Ferdinand de Saussure, father of linguistics. These are some of the grammarians who worked with this. We will briefly talk about Fries later. I'm going really fast with this because first you can pause the video and take notes, and I already mentioned this in the previous video. So this emphasizes the relation of words, not the meaning. Yes, it kind of looks at semantics, but it's not that important, as long as the words are in the correct order and correctly used, of course. So when we analyze a sentence using structural grammar, which are the exercises we're going to be working with from now on, we first divide the language or the sentences into the smallest units, and then we follow 3 levels of analysis. Okay, the phonology, morphology, important aspect. I posted a video on this for my Grammar 1 students. You should check that. And syntax. As I told you, the relationships between the components of a sentence. So what it does, it describes a language as it is used in the text. They say the structural language will change with time, and we know it does. The Ica analysis used, it was first introduced by Leonard Bloomfield. Look at the year it was introduced. What do we do with it? We break the sentence into many constituents, getting a meaningful part. We divide the sentence into subject and predicate. So that we take the sentence, poor John ran fast. We get this. Poor John is a subject, divided into poor and John, and then we have ran fast. But hey, what was the limitation? It doesn't indicate the grammatical functions of its constituents. Enter M.A.K. Halliday. I want to apologize. On the previous video, I said Mark Halliday. My bad. It's Michael Halliday, also known as M.A.K. Halliday. He introduced the labeling method. What is that? He added two class labels. Class labels and functional labels. So for the same sentence, now we know what each part of a sentence means. And now we can perform a better analysis. This right here belongs to a material I shared with you about morphology. We talk about the lexical categories and the non-lexical categories. Please check that material. It's absolutely important. These are the lexical categories of words and the non-lexical categories. Basically, these are the content words and these are the function words. Words with meaning, and these are like the glue, the words that put sentences together. This was an example I mentioned in a previous video of a really basic analysis of a sentence. And what we did during the meeting, we analyzed only the first part of a sentence. Friendly dogs usually jump around in an attempt to express their happiness. We analyzed this very first part. There is a full video on that lesson where we talked about it. I encourage you to take a look at it. So when we talk about systemic functional grammar, yes, some sources say it started in 1952 with some ideas that Charles C. Fries had, J.R. Firth as well. When finally M.A.K. Halliday, who was J.R. Firth's student, and Ruqayya Hassan, she's normally not mentioned, but according to some sources that I checked, she worked along M.A.K. Halliday in order to help him edit some of the content. So she should be given some recognition too. So she's here. So systemic functional grammar, let's take a look at it. It says 1984, when it was the boom era of the systemic functional grammar, but you will see that M.A.K. Halliday continued basically until the moment of his death working on this one. So how is language seen under the systemic functional theory? Particular aspects of a given context define the meanings likely to be expressed and the language likely to be used to express those meanings. Context can be considered from two perspectives, and this is something I was pointing out to the students during the meeting. The context of culture and the context of situation. Culture is the socio-cultural environment, including ideology, social conventions, and institutions. And the situation context relates to the specific situations inside the socio-cultural environment. So they are inside a system. That's why it's called systemic functional theory. Now, the word text, you'll see how we use it, is a harmonious collection of meaning appropriate to its context. And language is a resource people use to accomplish their purposes by expressing meaning in context. So as you see, the word meaning has a lot of importance inside the systemic functional theory. So let's talk about the context of situation. Now, with this one, we are going to be talking about three aspects: field, tenor, and mode. Field refers to what is to be talked or written about. Field refers to the topics and actions which language expresses. Tenor is a relationship between the speaker and the listener, or the writer and the reader. Tenor denotes language users, their relationships, and their purposes. Basically, tenor will be like the subject. Mode refers to the channel of communication. Now, regarding text, text can be viewed as having three important facets: textual, interpersonal, and ideational. So, when we talk about the textual aspect, enables people to use language to construct logical and coherent texts, and is influenced by mode. The interpersonal meta function enables people to use language to enact social relationships and is influenced by tenor. And the ideational experiential meta function enables people to use language to represent experience and is influenced by field. You see Halliday again working with this, 1994. So the experiential function of a clause, we have to take into account participant, process, and the circumstance. Take a look at this. Let's analyze it. Participant represents the thingness concept that is being talked about. And in the grammar, is most likely realized by a nominal group. So we could say participant is like the subject. Process, the essential ingredient, expresses what's happening, doing, and being, saying, and thinking. Many types of processes which are realized by verbal groups. So basically, when we mention process, we're talking about the verb. Now, circumstance, realized by adverbial groups, prepositional phrases, nominal groups. It is a circumstantial information about the process. So if we say subject verb, of course, here we have the complement or the predicate. That's basically how you should analyze this in order to understand it better. Now, for the interpersonal function, we have to talk about the finite and the subject. Finite is the part of a verbal group which encodes primary tense or the speaker's opinion. So, the role of the finite can be a sign of time in relation to the speaker, or a modal sign of a speaker's opinion. Whereas subject is a nominal group interacting most closely with the finite. Now, for the textual function, we have the theme and the rime. Theme is whatever comes first in a clause. It conveys an important meaning, and its importance is the development of a text. The rime is the rest of a clause. This is kind of easy to get. So, when we talk about sentences and groups, there's a very systematic way, hence the name of a grammar approach, to analyze sentences and understand their constituents. At clause level, it has simple structures. Let's say alpha and beta. Let's take a look at this. My mother didn't come yesterday because she was sick. So we split it into two. We have alpha, we have beta. So at group level, it provides constituents of subject, predicate, complement, and adjunct. An adjunct is the full category for any nonsense word or group. But take a look at what an adjunct is here. We have the same sentence. My mother didn't come yesterday because she was sick. What happens if we split this sentence? If I say, my mother didn't come, the sentence has a meaning. It makes sense. So it means like yesterday, because she was sick, it's like kind of an extra information. That's an adjunct. It's adverbial information. Talking about the time. We're giving reason here. So adjuncts, they normally give extra information, and we can take them out of a sentence, and the main sentence still makes sense. That's an adjunct, something extra. Okay? Here are the labels, the labels that we're going to use to represent the words when we analyze sentences using the systemic functional grammar approach. We will start with the structural grammar for the first exercises. So I won't go into deep with this type of grammar. We will go further with this one, maybe February, late February, early March. We'll be talking about this one. Here are some of the meanings, and there is something to point out here. H, which is the head or the head word, okay? M is a modifier. So look at this definition. Any word that modifies, qualifies, describes, or identifies the head word. And the head word is a noun, so that's an adjective. It comes before the head word. My mother. My is the head word here. So, is the modifier here. And this one is a possessive adjective. A pre-modifier, if we were talking about morphology type of analysis and structural grammar analysis. So, a modifier, M, for this type of grammar, systemic functional, is an adjective, an attributive adjective. Whereas the Q, which stands for qualifier, look, has the same definition. Modifies, qualifies, describes, identifies a head word. But it comes after. So this is another adjective, a post-positive adjective, or a post-modifier, we could say. P, preposition. No problem with this one. BP is a before preposition, like a pre-modifier, maybe we could say, before the prepositional phrase. C is a completive. Is basically a post-modifier for this expression. In this case, is made up of an object or noun. V stands for verb, but check this out. V is for action verbs, like run, go, eat, have. And A is also for verbs, but for auxiliary verbs. To be, do, does. The E is extension. When we say, for example, we have the verb run, and we add out. Here we have a phrasal verb. So basically, phrasal verbs, the particle or the preposition on a phrasal verb, which is changing the meaning of a verb, is an extension under the systemic functional grammar approach. Here is a just simple example. We have the clause. The children play with their toys. We have three groups. The children played with their toys. 6 words, 9 morphemes. And this is, let me eliminate this quickly. You can pause the video and take a look at this later. But let me make this bigger. This is what we were talking about. You see the meta function, system network. Look at the sentence. In the open glade, the wild rabbits danced with their shadows. Okay, so In the open glade, it's the theme. What's happening, right? The wild rabbits, the rime, subject. Danced, that's on the interpersonal part of a mental function. Finite is the predicator. It's also a process. With their shadows is an adjunct. Why? Because I could take it out and the sentence still makes sense. In the open glade, the wild rabbits danced. This is extra information. See, adjuncts are extra information. This is a type of analysis under the systemic functional approach. We will be working with this later on, as I mentioned previously. More important information regarding systemic functional grammar, just to take a look at it. The participant could be the actor, the agent, the goal, the carrier, the sayer, the subject. The circumstance, look, cause, location, manner, accompaniment, could be an adverb as well. Place. Regarding transformational generative grammar, I mentioned that I would not include this for the evaluation. Just important thing to say. Started with Zelig Harris and then enter Noam Chomsky. When he talked about the LAD, or the language acquisition device, he nailed it. And I used the example of Tarzan, which was kind of funny. Imagine Tarzan, he, according to the story, of course a fictional story, he was raised by monkeys. Then, once becoming an adult, he was taken to England, if I'm not wrong. I'm so sorry, Disney fans. And then he learned to talk. So that's basically what Noam Chomsky was saying. Not talking about Tarzan, but he said that every single person has something like a structure in our brain that allows us to acquire a language at any stage of our lives. Unless you have a serious cognitive, disease or something. But normally, any person could acquire any language at any stage of their lives. That's why Noam Chomsky is who he is in the world of linguistics, although he's retired. So, we will be working with exercises on Monday meeting. Remember, students for Grammar 2, our meeting will be from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Venezuelan time. I hope I can see you there. Please remember to read about this, and I will also send you the evaluation after our meeting on Monday. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.